Welcome to the Four Bells and to Workout from Home number 66. Here we are at the beginning of our second week of our arms and abs cycle. Today is not an arm day, but it does feature a lot of abs as well as a big amount of legs, as we are looking at some work for the hamstrings and balancing out any single leg issues with a little slice of flexibility added in there as well. When we are looking at our work today, our focus in our strength piece is going to be hamstring curls, Bulgarian split squats. But to get us ready for those things today, we're going to do these three things 3 times. We're going to start off with a 3-way lunge complex. Forwards, backwards, curtsy, getting the hips nice and warmed up. From there, we're going to get to some single leg deadlifts, looking at some balance, stability, and priming the posterior chain. And then from there, some low side stepping. We're going to have a little booty band on, as we like to call them here at the gym. Basically get some glute activation going and some hip abduction. We're going to do these 3 things 3 times before our strength piece. How should they look? Well, let's find out. When starting the warm-up, we are looking at a 3-way lunge complex. When looking at this complex, all I should really be thinking about is focusing on one leg moving. So whether that's one leg stepping forwards into a forward lunge, and then the same leg doing a reverse lunge, and the same leg doing a curtsy lunge. So just focusing on one leg. When it comes to our regular lunge position, as always, I want to have my feet on train tracks. I don't want to be lined up so that I'm wobbling around all over the place and losing stability. So think about the leg. I'm just going to focus on my left leg first of all. I step forwards, touch the back knee down, make sure the torso is nice and vertical, nice 90-degree bend in the front leg. We push back, bring the feet together. I then do a reverse lunge, again, nice upright torso position, looking for a little stretch in that trailing hip flexor. From there I come back up, and then curtsy lunge. I step across and behind, and then come back to our start position. So that's 1 rep of the 3-way lunge complex. We've got to do 2 per side, so that would mean right leg forwards, right leg back, right leg curtsy lunge, and then we do it all over again, so twice per complex per leg. From there we get into the single leg deadlift. What I'm looking for is a Romanian deadlift pattern, so that means feet fairly close together, big emphasis on that hinge where I'm loading the hamstring and loading the glute and bringing that torso parallel to the floor. That Romanian deadlift position I'm looking to do on one leg. So pick a leg. Ideally your less stable side first. I'm going to push the hip back, load the hamstring, load the glute, allow the torso to come to parallel, and from there I drive the hip forward and squeeze the glute. If balance is a big issue for you, make sure you've got things around you that you can grab hold of or help you stabilize a little bit if you need it. Again, I'm pushing the hip back, I'm not allowing the chest to reach to the floor, I'm keeping a neutral spine, loading the hamstring, loading the glute, and then driving the hip forwards. So we're going to do 5 per leg of a single leg deadlift. Last but not least, some low side stepping. Grab yourself a little band if you have one, and if you don't have one, that's okay, not the end of the world. But what we are trying to do here is do a little bit of hip abduction, so pushing the knees out, get a little bit of glute activation. So I'm going to set the feet a little bit wider than I would normally squat, drive the knees out so I've got some tension on the band. From here, chest up, and I'm going to take 5 steps, nice and slow. Notice how I'm trying to push the knees out into the band. I'm not letting the knees collapse in, and I'm definitely not bringing the feet so close together that I lose tension in the band. Once I've done 5 in one direction, push the knees out, we go back the way we came for another 5 reps. So, 3-way lunge complex, we're going to do 2 times per leg. From there, I'm going to do 5 per leg of a single leg deadlift, and from there, 5 in one direction, 5 back of a low side step. We're doing that for 3 rounds in the warm up today. With our strength piece today, the big focus is some work on the posterior chain, in particular the hamstrings. We try and do some development for those hammies today. So we are going to do 5 sets. Each set is 3 minutes long. Within that 3-minute window, we're going to do 2 90-second windows of time. And in my first 90 seconds, we are going to do some hamstring curls. So again, what do you have available to you while you're working at home? I'm going to demonstrate it today using a Swiss ball. That can be done very easily with a TRX. Some people have been using just the strap from their rings to put their feet in to do hamstring curls. You could do it with socks on a shiny floor. You could do it with like a cookie baking tray on carpet, it can be done. And also we have some people out there who are very fancy and have glute ham developer machines or benches in their home gyms. If you are that fancy, use them. Otherwise, we are still going to be doing hamstring curls for 15 reps today. So we're going to go over technique and a few of the pitfalls that can happen when you're using, I suppose, equipment at home. From there, once I've done my 15 hamstring curls, our antagonist pairing, our posterior chain with our anterior chain, back and front, is going to be some Bulgarian split squats today for 8 reps per leg. The Bulgarian split squat, or also known as the rear foot elevated split squat, it's a phrase that rolls easily off the tongue. We are going to be looking at not only developing unilateral strength, but with that foot raised up behind us, we're going to look at increasing mobility and flexibility through the hips. The idea is always, when we're doing single leg work, is to make sure that we approach our less stable or strong side first, and then do our more strong or stable side second. So, hamstring curls for 15 reps, Bulgarian split squats for 8 per leg. Let's look at how we should be setting those bad boys up. With our hamstring curls today, obviously the big focus is working on the hamstrings, but our ability to engage them is really going to be dependent on the equipment we have available, what kind of surfaces we have, how much muscular contraction we have, the setup, is a friend helping me, do I have a band, what's the accumulating resistance, lots of things to think about all at once. But all we're going to do is just focus on what we have available. So I'm going to demonstrate with a Swiss ball, which is going to translate very similarly to what you can do with the TRX or maybe the straps from a pair of rings at home. If you are very lucky to have something fancy like a GHD machine, or even if you have like your partner at home or your friend can help you hold your ankles and help you do Nordic curls, that is also available as well. So look at what you have available to you, and we'll talk about that. When it comes to the Swiss ball or the TRX, the emphasis is the same. All I need to think about is obviously bringing the heel to my bum. I'm going to curl myself up. That means that all I need to think about then is, because I'm in a, not prone, supine position, I'm facing the ceiling, all I need to think is I don't want my hips to sag down. So I'm going to set myself up. If this was a TRX dangling down, I'd want my TRX maybe 10 inches off the floor, foot off the floor. We don't want it super close to the floor. Either way, the same rules apply when I'm using my Swiss ball. So I'm going to get the heels on first. From here, I'm going to drive my upper body into the floor, try and create a nice stable base. From here, it's hips up, squeeze the bum, and I'm trying to pull the heels into my butt as hard as possible, trying to contract my hamstrings as hard as possible without letting my hips sag down in between reps. We've got to keep those hips up and try and get the hamstrings as engaged as possible. So whatever we're doing 15 reps with our hamstrings, and what I really want you to try and feel is try and feel the engagement in the hamstring as much as possible. Pull those heels in, squeeze those hamstrings. 15 reps of a hamstring curl. With the Bulgarian split squat, we are trying to address unilateral strength, which means, do I have one leg that is the same strength as the other? And hopefully that means yes. So it kind of does two things at once. If I have one leg that's a little bit weaker than the other, we can try and play catch up a little bit. And if I have legs that are both equally strong, I don't think anyone does, we can still develop strength in the legs at the same time. The added bonus with the Bulgarian split squat is because we have the rear foot elevated, it puts us into a greater, almost split position, like we're doing the splits, which in turn can help us increase mobility in the hips. How do I set up for a Bulgarian split squat? First of all, I would say picking an object that's kind of around knee height or a little bit below. So as you can see on this bench, just below my kneecap is where my foot's going to be. But of course, depending on how long your legs are, is really going to dictate the height of that. So I'm 6'4". If you are shorter than that, you might need a lower surface. The next thing to think about is the surface I'm using, is it going to flop around and move around on me? Make sure it does not. Last thing to think about before we start is the surface I'm using reasonably squishy on top? You don't want to use a brick wall on a bare foot. That would be very uncomfortable. So make sure you've got something that's a little bit padded for the top of the foot that is going to rest on this bench. When I'm setting up, my rule of, well, I say rule of thumb, it's really a rule of split squat, is 3 foot lengths away from wherever I'm resting my foot. So this 1 foot length, 2, and then 3. From there, I'm going to reach back and hopefully my toe touches the bench, which is approximately about the length of my shin and my foot. When it comes to my split squat, of course, balance is a big factor, but really what I want to think about is that split position as well. So it's not about letting my non-working leg go down to the floor, it's about trying to send that knee back to the bench. So that means I'm trying to get into a split position. So as I allow myself to come down, this knee comes back towards the bench, I touch down and drive back up. If this is super easy for you, then feel free to add a little bit of weight. I would say if I'm standing on my right leg, I'm going to hold my weight on the opposite side for a little bit of transverse ab action. And of course, if you want to hold on to 2 dumbbells, feel free to do so. If you are feeling very dangerous, you could do this with a barbell, but of course, if you are going to do it with a barbell, make sure you do it in a front rack position so you can bail into the floor should anything go wrong. Either way, Bulgarian split squats, we're going to do 8 on our non-strongest side first, then 8 on our strongest side second, and let's see if we can get a little bit heavier across each of those 5 sets. The conditioning piece today is rife with intensity. We are trying to keep a very high pace during our work periods today and then maximize recovery during our rest periods. We are going to do 30 seconds of work followed by 30 seconds of rest. We are going to do that for 15 minutes today. And as you can see on the board, we have 3 stations, 1, 2, 3. We're going to cycle through those 3 stations 5 times to get to our 15 minutes today. So for my 30 seconds, as I said, intensity should be high. It says sprint on the board with an exclamation mark, which says actually sprint. Don't think, I'm just going to do a recovery pace. No one will know. We should be trying to push the intensity today. So that means whether you have a rowing machine at home, a bike, treadmill, whether you're doing jumping jacks, high knees, bring the heat. This is not a take your grandma for a stroll situation. This means we should be moving with purpose. From there, once we've taken our 30 seconds of rest, breathe, try and recover the system. I'm then going to get into kettlebell swings, where regardless of whether I have a heavy kettlebell or a light kettlebell, I'm trying to do as many swings as possible in 30 seconds. Really trying to push that pace. Another 30 seconds rest. I'm then going to take maybe the same weight I use for my kettlebell. Maybe I'm using a lighter weight, who knows, depending on what you have available to you. I'm going to do as many goblet squats as possible in 30 seconds. Follow that by a 30-second rest. That's 1 round through those 3 stations. We've got 4 more to go. So let's spend a little bit more time talking about sprinting, kettlebell swinging, and goblet squatting. As we mentioned in the description for the conditioning piece, our first round is sprinting. So that means actually sprint. This is not a thing where, to put it nicely, coaches can be cynical sometimes. You see a lot of people work out, and you know the nature of some people. Some people are water testers. They're like, I'm just going to dip my toe in, see how the first few rounds of this workout go first, see if I'm going to survive. Don't do that. We're just going to go in, we're going to try and sprint for 30 seconds. So of course, if you happen to have a rowing machine available, sprint on that rowing machine. Of course, make sure it looks beautiful. If you have a bike, sprint on that bike. If you have a treadmill, sprint on that treadmill. If you don't have any of those available to you, it could be just high knees. It could be trying to move in jumping jacks with purpose, not slow, casual jumping jacks. Or maybe if I have a rope, I'm trying to turn that rope as fast as possible. Either way, sprint means sprint. When it comes to our kettlebell swing, of course, good mechanics for a kettlebell swing is very important. I want to make sure that I'm hinging at the hip, loading the hamstring, loading the glutes. And we've got that snap at the top. We should have 3 things engaged. Glutes engaged, quads engaged, abs engaged. So when I'm doing my kettlebell swings, I'm trying to get as many swings done in 30 seconds. Should be a nice pop through the hip, squeeze the glutes, engage the quads, brace the abs, which brings us nicely after 30 seconds into our goblet squat. Maybe you're using the same weight for your swings as your squats. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're going heavier. Who knows? Either way, how many squats can I get done in 30 seconds? I should be moving with purpose, trying not to rest at the top. Not resting at the top, hanging out, going, oh my God. We're trying to keep moving because we know half of this workout, half of this 15 minutes is rest. So make sure that when you're working, you deserve that rest. 30 seconds work, 30 seconds rest. We're doing that for sprinting, kettlebell swings, goblet squats, for 900 glorious seconds. Have fun. Let us know how you get on.